Hello and welcome to the discussion on India's foreign policy. Now I am moving into a new chapter, that is Look East policy. In fact, this is a very important policy, and in fact today this policy has been renamed as Act East policy. So the first discussion is on Look East policy and our relationship with Southeast Asia and its historic background. So Look East policy and the historic background. So in this, I would like to discuss about how the relationship evolved over a period of time. In fact, Look East policy was initiated by P.V. Narasimha Rao. When he was the Prime Minister from 1991 to 1996. So he took the initiative, and the initiative was to improve our relationship with the Southeast Asian countries, the ASEAN countries, the Southeast Association for Southeast Asian countries, ASEAN, and the initiative was taken in 1991. And now today when you look back, it is seen as one of the most successful foreign policy initiatives by India right now. So it is a great initiative. And now let us see the historic background. When we look at Southeast Asia, we have a historic connection with Southeast Asia. Our Hinduism, cultural contact, our Hinduism and Buddhism had deep roots in this region. In fact, even today, many of the countries, the mainland Southeast Asian countries, which is today it is known as Indo-China. It is known as Indo-China. Southeast Asia is known as Indo-China. That the peninsula is known as Indo-China region because it is a cusp of Indian civilization and Chinese civilization. And India has tremendous influence in this region. In fact, most of these countries, whether it is Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, all are Buddhist countries. Myanmar, all of them follow Buddhism in a big way. And it is emerged from India, Nepal, our own Buddhism, our very own Buddhism. And in fact, when you look at the culture in this region, just see the Angkor Wat. Please remember, this is the largest temple complex in the world in Cambodia. Largest temple complex in the world. In fact, it was originally a Hindu temple complex on God Vishnu. But by the Khmer Empire in Cambodia, Khmer Empire, and it might have been constructed around 12th century. But subsequently, it has been slowly converted into a Buddhist, temple. So this is there, that was on Lord Vishnu, which is constructed in 12th century, the largest temple complex in the world even today. It is in a site of around 162 hectares. The temple complex is in 162 hectares, the largest. So originally considered Hindu temple, but gradually transformed into a Buddhist temple by the end of 12th century. Similarly, Borobudur, that is in Indonesia. Borobudur temple, it is a Mahayana Buddhist temple constructed in the 9th century, Buddhist temple. 9th century. And it is in central Java in Indonesia. It was a Buddhist temple and is the largest Buddhist temple in the world. It was constructed by the Shailendra dynasty. So largest Buddhist temple, largest Hindu temple in Southeast Asia. So you can imagine the influence of Indian culture, Indian religion in this region in historic times. And even today, please remember, Bali in Indonesia is a Hindu island, a Hindu majority island. The majority of the people are still following Hinduism, Bali Islands. And also, you take the case of the folklore of Indonesia. Even today, Ramayana plays a very crucial role in the folklore of Indonesia, even though Indonesia is a Muslim majority country, in fact, the largest Muslim country in the world. But Ramayana plays a very crucial role. The official airlines of Indonesia the name is Garud, from our own mythology. So, the influence of India in this region is tremendous. In fact, what was Greece to Europe? What was the influence of Greece on Europe is similarly is India's influence on Southeast Asia. The way the Greek mythology plays a very crucial role in the European culture and history, the same thing happens in Southeast Asia. India plays a similar role. So, historically, we had a great contact, we had a great relationship with, or rather, our expansion, or rather the Indian dynasties and all always look forward to expand towards this region. We had great contacts with Southeast Asia. During the colonial era, in fact, most of the Southeast, in fact, if you look at the Southeast Asian countries, 10 Southeast Asian countries are there. Myanmar, then Malaysia, Singapore, all of them were under the British. That is the British Indochina. Then we had the French Indochina, that is where Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, they were in the influence of France. Indonesia was Dutch East Indies. Please remember, the present day Indonesia was Dutch. It is also known as the Dutch East Indies. Indonesia was under the control of Dutch. Philippines, of course, in the island. Philippines were under the control of Spain, subsequently under the control of USA since 1900. Since 1900, Philippines were under. But one country in Southeast Asia which was not colonized by anyone was Thailand. Thailand was kept as a buffer between British and the French. Thailand was not colonized. Otherwise, all other countries in the region were colonized, and all of them have gone through almost a similar decolonization process. So, we were united even in the decolonization process. So, please see, historically, we had great contacts. Indian culture played a very crucial role. During the colonial era, all of us were colonized except Thailand. Thailand was not colonized. Then the decolonization process in the 20th century. Decolonization process. Decolonization process. In the 20th century, we were all together. Almost all these countries got independence in similar time, but then came the Cold War. See, now you see, till decolonization, almost everything was same, or rather we passed through, we have gone through a similar setup, and we had no conflict as such, we were having great contact. Then came the Cold War. During the Cold War era, and we started our non-aligned movement, Bandung Conference, everything happened, it is true. But subsequently, India moved a bit closer to USSR after signing the 1971 Friendship Treaty. Nehru was more comfortable with socialism. We moved closer to the socialist countries, step by step, and the Southeast Asian countries moved closer to NATO. So, during the Cold War era, we started diverging away. This divergence were mainly because of the superpower rivalry. We did not have any personal or between the bilateral rivalry. The rivalry was mainly fueled by the bipolar politics of the world, the Cold War. So, knowingly or unknowingly, India and Southeast Asia diverged away during the Cold War because of our compulsions at that time. So, if you look at historically the last 2000 or 3000 years of history, if you look, the only time when we slightly moved away is during the Cold War era. Then came 1991 and the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Cold War ended, 1991, Cold War ended, Soviet Union collapsed, the ideological war ended, and in fact the Cold War ended. So, these ideological problems ended. Once again, India and Southeast Asia started looking towards each other. Once again, improved relations. Moreover, another very important thing happened was the economic liberalization of India in 1991. So, one is, so how we started moving closer once again after 1991, one, the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the ideological war. Number two, the economic crisis in India and the economic liberalization. The P.V. Narasimha Rao government and the Dr. Manmohan Singh as finance minister at that time, the Manmohanomics started. That is what we say, because that is the turning point. The kind of contribution Dr. Manmohan Singh has given to the country is unparalleled in the modern era, because 1991 economic reforms was the brainchild. Of course, P.V. Narasimha Rao as prime minister supported him, no doubt, but this politics, this economics is the Manmohan Singh's economics. That is why it is called Manmohanomics. Started. And 25 years, see, he was the finance minister from 91 to 96. Then 2004 to 14, he was the prime minister of India. So, if you look 91, in the last 30 years, he ruled, or he was in the helm of affairs for 15 years. And even today, no subsequent government is able to rewrite this Manmohan Singh's economic philosophy and the policy and the route in which we are moving. So, this Manmohanomics and the new economic policy of India has had a great emphasis on foreign direct investment and opening up the economy, attracting technology and even investment from outside countries, and we found Southeast Asia can be a good source of investment, because Southeast Asia was already undergoing economic reforms. Their economy was growing since 1980s. In a healthy economic rate was going on, and they were looking for opportunities for investment, and India, because of our economic liberalization, were looking forward for investment, and we found the right combination. We have no historic baggage in the first place. Historically, we were together, we had great influence, they were appreciative. The Southeast Asian countries were appreciative of India's influence in this region. There was no hegemonic relationship. We were not there was no colonial hangover, or there is no colonial relationship between India and this region. We never exploited Southeast Asia. Culturally, we influenced and we gave a lot to Southeast Asia. We had gone through the same decolonization process. The only period when we were slightly away were during the Cold War era. Even then, there was no direct conflict between India and Southeast Asia. Then came 1991, collapse of the Soviet